I started working at 15. Some people will get their money, spend it today and not worry about tomorrow. Unfortunately, at my time in life, we have to worry about tomorrow.
After decades of physical labour, 60-year-old Brett Clemens had hoped his retirement was just around the corner. But a modest superannuation balance and the rising cost of living mean the Perth-based cleaner expects to be working at least another decade.
I have about 150,000 in superannuation, and I'll end up with 10,000 left out of my superannuation after the house is paid for, which isn't a lot to live on after 45 years of working.
What's making Brett even more nervous is that balance is fluctuating daily because of global economic uncertainty.
COVID's hit, the war in the Ukraine has hit, now suddenly everything's volatile.
Older people who are near retirement or indeed in retirement have a lot of reasons to be anxious at this point of time.
Only 3 funds are reported to have made money last financial year for their members with balanced investments. But the Association of Superannuation Funds is urging older Australians not to panic.
The reality is, last financial year we saw returns of 20%. This year it has fallen slightly, on average about 3%. And I do encourage people to look at returns over 10 years rather than follow what happens day to day.
Estimates vary on how much Australians need to retire. The Association of Superannuation Funds says to live comfortably, a single person will need $545,000 and a couple $640,000 if they retire at 67.
Which basically means you can afford to go to the dentist, you can catch up with friends and have that cup of coffee, you can fix the washing machine or car. We estimate by 2050, 50% of Australians will get to that dignity in retirement.
Brett won't be one of them.
640,000 in super, well, I would love that. But certainly no cleaners will be making that money.
It's not just those hoping to retire soon who are feeling nervous about their future.
My mum has always instilled from the day I started work how important superannuation is.
Good to see you. You too.
Michaela Marshall-Lawrence faced the unfortunate timing of opening her hairdressing salon at the start of the pandemic. Desperate to keep her small business afloat, the 27-year-old took up the former coalition government's offer to withdraw $5,000 from her superannuation.
I wasn't eligible for any government support in any way, shape or form. I had already exhausted 95% of my savings on purchasing the salon. It was enough that it paid for another month worth of rent, and I could pay my staff and I could afford to live.
Under the scheme, up to $20,000 could be taken out if a person was experiencing hardship. But withdrawing the money early also means missing out on potentially tens of thousands of dollars in compound earnings across future years.
What we do know is 1 million people now have less than $1,000 in their super. What we also know is that 3 million people took out $40 billion. That has disproportionately impacted on single parents, women and low-income people. 44% of those people who took out money for early release were under 35.
The Coalition maintains the scheme was necessary at a time of crisis.
We're allowing early release of superannuation because this is the people's money.
Now, this was a 1 in 100 year pandemic. This is not normal states of affairs. So the requirement and the responsibility was with individual Australians, because remember, it's their money.
With her business now turning a profit, Michaela's making extra contributions to grow the $6,000 left in her super more quickly.
Look, I definitely am concerned. I'm now paying myself 22% super. And I know so many people, they're like, oh, it's just super. I can't access it for another 50, 60 years anyway. So what's the point? And it's like, well, there is a big point.
The Council on the Ageing says those who've withdrawn from their super early will find it tougher to fund their own retirement.
The impact of that withdrawal is that there'll be higher pension costs into the future years. We don't think that it is a good policy to allow people to use super for anything other than the continued accumulation of their retirement benefits.
Back in Perth, Brett Clements knows funding his own retirement will be impossible.
Hello, little man. I'll have to go cap in hand to the government and try and draw on a pension. It's a good boy. Pride gets in your way sometimes.
Financial pressures also mean Brett's 75-year-old wife has had to postpone her retirement.
And she'll tell you that I've become more and more depressed. I think that the next 12 months is going to be hard. I think it's just going to get tougher.